Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Joining us right now is Reid. He is the head of the Faith and Freedom Coalition. It's good to have you with us.
Good to be with you.
Speaker Boehner came out yesterday and kind of gave a tongue lashing to conservative groups, and I think the Faith and Freedom Coalition fits into that group. He said that these conservative groups, not specifically mentioning yours, are using the American people and members of Congress for their own goals. He called it ridiculous. As it relates to this budget deal, what do you make of the Speaker's comments, and do you think he has any ground to stand on?
Well, if I were a member of Congress, I would probably vote no on this deal. And certainly I have a lot of good friends, from Marco Rubio to Rand Paul to Raul Labrador to even Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, who are already on record saying that they will vote against it. But on the other hand, there are people of goodwill and conservative principles like Paul Ryan, who are not trying to oversell this. They're not saying this is a great deal. They're not saying this is a perfect deal. They're saying this is the best we can do with divided government and a liberal Democratic controlled Senate and a liberal Democrat president at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue. So I'll leave the dispute between Speaker Boehner and other outside organizations for them to litigate and resolve. But I would just say that, if we want to get to a better budget, the only way to do it is to elect a Senate in 2014 and add a margin in a House that will enable us to pass that Senate. The Republicans in the House, led by Paul Ryan, have passed budgets that would bring us into balance within 10 years. I'd personally like to see us into balance a lot faster, 3 to 5 years. Without raising taxes, through fiscal responsibility and reform of long-term entitlements like Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We have the ideas, we have the solutions. The problem is the U.S. Senate today is controlled by Harry Reid and Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin, and it is the graveyard for our solutions for this country. And there is only one way to fix that. And that is, we have to see a change in the U.S. Senate, and that has to happen in November of 2014. In a democracy, elections have consequences, and unfortunately, the fact that this budget deal is probably going to become law is one of the consequences of the outcome of the 2012 elections.
All right, fair enough. So you wouldn't vote for it, but you understand that it's maybe the best thing that can get done with the makeup of government being what it is today.
I think that reasonable people of goodwill are going to disagree as to whether or not we could have gotten more, or were there tactics or strategies that we could have pursued. But look, this came after a government shutdown. I think our guys did everything they could to come to a better alternative. I was there in 95, 96, the last time we went through a shutdown. And I think what I would counsel my friends, I was then at the Christian Coalition, of course now I'm at Faith and Freedom Coalition, not to freeze frame this where it is today. We're not thrilled with what's happened, but this isn't the end of the line. If we can see a new Senate in January of 2015 where we could sit down with conferees in regular order and pass a better budget, send it to Barack Obama, then he's got to either sign it or veto it. That'll put us in a much stronger negotiating position.
All right, well, let's stay on Capitol Hill. I want to talk also about this push, bipartisan push, I should say, in the Senate and in the House for more sanctions against Iran. I know on your website you say that increased sanctions against Iran are needed now, perhaps more than ever. Do you think this has a chance with the White House, the administration pushing back so hard against Congress, that there will be new sanctions as we move forward?
I do. But for the administration, as it did, by the way, with the last round of sanctions in 2010 and 2011, the same administration, obviously with somewhat different players, then it was Hillary Clinton at state, and now it's John Kerry, different personalities, but same administration, same message. They said at the time, do not pass tougher sanctions, because if you do, it will derail the diplomatic track. It did the exact opposite. The tougher sanctions that we helped pass over the objections of the Obama administration are what drove the Iranians to their knees economically. It is what has put some of the government-owned energy entities into bankruptcy in Iran, and it is what forced the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world to the table. I think the deal that has been negotiated on an interim basis is a bad deal. It allows them to keep their uranium enrichment program. It allows them to keep all of their nuclear installations. And I don't think that the verification or the inspection regime is invasive enough or trustworthy enough. If we want to be able to get to a deal, and all of us want to avoid military action if it is at all possible, the best way to do so is for the Congress to pass even tougher sanctions now. The administration, truth be told, has opposed every sanctions regime that we have sought or passed. They have also tried to weaken the sanctions regimes that have been passed by Congress by either granting waivers to countries like India or China, or by slow-walking the listing of certain companies as verboten to do business with by the United States or by our Western allies. So I know it's counterintuitive, but if we want a deal, if we don't want military action, the best thing to do is to pass tougher sanctions now.
If you also look at some of the polling data, the American public favors tougher sanctions in addition to this negotiation that's been taking place. So if it does pass the House, if it does also pass the Senate, these tougher sanctions, and the American people are in favor of it, what do you think would be holding the Obama administration back from implementing those?
Well, that would be a better question directed at them. But their stated reason is because they believe that it has the potential to derail the diplomatic track. My argument on that is, A, we've seen this movie before. They have argued this with sanctions passed previously, and they have been proven wrong. So number one, we've heard the argument before, and the argument wasn't true. Number two, the current deal is bad. And the current deal is the floor of it's the basis for negotiating a long-term deal. So if you think the interim deal is unacceptable as a long-term solution, the only way to move them diplomatically is with the threat of additional pressure from additional sanctions. The truth is, I firmly believe this. The best way to avoid the military option is to pass tougher, more restrictive sanctions now. And I would, by the way, not have the effective date be at the end of this interim deal. I would have them take effect immediately upon signature, and then they'll want to get out from underneath those sanctions by making additional concessions. If we're going to have a deal, we need to strengthen the hand of Secretary Kerry. We need to strengthen the hand of the so-called P5+1, which is the Western allies, including Germany, that are negotiating with us. And the only way to do that is with tougher sanctions.
All right, well, we'll see if the White House listens to the American public and to Congress. Question mark right now sitting in that place. But Ralph, Reid, we want to thank you very much for being with us today. Thanks for sharing your insight. It's been a pleasure.
You bet. Good to be with you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.